Welcome.
Well, thank you, Ed.
It is August 18, 2015, and actually last night we weren't able to attend. I was out of town and you were kind of busy, but they had a budget meeting, a public meeting for Del Mar College to discuss the projected budget for next year.
Right.
And that's a good thing because based on history, they need to spend a lot more time talking about the budget.
Right.
And just as an example, and I want to make it clear, these are not my numbers.
Right.
These come from what is called the award-winning Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
Okay.
Now that, it's always referred to by Dr. Sloan as award meeting because they get an award for it every year. And these numbers are embedded in the footnotes, basically, to that comprehensive annual financial report. And what I've done, I don't have all the comprehensive annual financial reports, but I do have some that have history in them, in the footnotes, and I've cross-referenced them because, again, I'm using their numbers.
Right.
So, and I've requested previous comprehensive annual financial reports. Haven't heard anything yet. It's that 10-day thing that sometimes takes 104 days.
Yeah.
So, but eventually I will get them. So,
Okay.
so we always eventually get what we ask for. Sometimes it costs, many times it costs the college thousands of dollars to wait,
Sure.
but then we ultimately get what we ask for.
Yeah, well, taxpayers got plenty of money. We don't worry about that.
They do have, and in fact, let me show you how much they've got. And it's not the taxpayers because this money was actually taken from the taxpayers.
Right.
Okay, so what we've done is go to their award-winning comprehensive annual financial report and taken from 2005 through 2014 the budget versus the actual expenditures. And then we've added in 2015's approximate budget surplus that was announced by the college controller of slightly over $7 million.
Right.
So from 2005 to 2014, the actual numbers of the budget surplus, that is the amount that was collected from taxpayers in excess of what was spent. That would be $73 million. Now, that's $73 million of our dollars
Right.
that Del Mar College has collected in excess of what they spent.
Right.
Now, did the professors get a raise last year?
No.
When was the last raise the professors got?
It's been so long ago. You know, the only reason that I have not squawked about that too much, tongue in cheek, was at least I didn't have to change my IRS filings every year with the same amount of money.
And that's a true benefit.
But, you know, it would have been nice to be compensated, and I said on another show recently, Ed, that, you know, there have been some real serious raises for administrators. There's been virtually nothing for tenure track or tenured faculty members. There's been nothing for the poor adjuncts. I mean, they work with slave labor over there, slave wages. But, you know, when you got the president who gets a 10% raise on $200 and something thousand salary,
That's a good salary,
And
particularly
then-
for Corpus.
and then the board votes him a $15,000 check for a, what do they call that? The performance bonus.
You know, performance is normally tied to some criteria.
Well, I don't know what it would be in that case, but, you know what I mean? Yeah, and so what I'm saying is, you know, that's a $35,000 increase in 1 year. Now, there are porters over there that aren't making that much a year themselves.
In fact, the average male in Corpus Christi makes about $33,000 a year.
But this was a bonus added to a already $200,000 a year salary.
let's go over some of the recent history, because I want to tie this in. Now, in 2010, that was the peak year for enrollment at Del Mar.
Mhm.
And in fact, you would think the peak year of enrollment, that would be the highest expenses you'd have.
Right.
And it has declined, the enrollment's declined since 2010, a little over 18%.
Right.
So you'd expect the cost to go down proportionally with the enrollment decline. But in 2010, the budget surplus was slightly more than $6 million.
Yeah.
So they took in more money than they spent in their peak year. And every year since has been a decline in enrollment, and you would think that would be a decline in expenses as well. And in fact, it's been an increase in the surplus. From 2010 to 2011, it increased from slightly over 6 million to almost 7.6 million.
Mhm.
And then these two are stunning. In 2012, the budget surplus was $12.851 million. And in 2013, it was $11.28 million.
Well, see, there were no raises over there at that time.
Now, I had heard, and I wasn't around there at that time, but I'd heard that the faculty was told there was no money in the budget for raises.
That is correct.
Now, if there's no money in the budget for raises, why was the budget $12,851,000 in excess of the expenditures?
Well, the way it used to be stated is, methinks you speak with forked tongue.
See, every year, with the exception of 2008, there was a budget surplus. And in fact, their budgeting process estimates 1.5% of the budget as a contingency. So if they meet all the expenditures, they will still have a budget surplus of 1.5%, which in this case is over $1 million.
Yeah.
And they have bragged about not spending any of that surplus for years, and I can see why. There's no reason to spend any of that contingency if you have a budget surplus of $12.851 million.
Mhm.
Now, this surplus is taken in that year,
Right.
and it can't be spent on operations the next year.
Mhm.
So this is one method they're using at Del Mar. Whether intentional or not, I have no idea. But this is one method they use to fund the capital expansion program.
Right.
The music building, we didn't have to float a bond for that. The 95 acres over here, we didn't have to float a bond for that. We could pay cash for it.
But my hang up with that, Ed, is why can't the taxpayers decide whether they want that magnificent new music building or not? Isn't that the way
I think that's the
taxpayers
intent.
support it? Yeah.
I believe, see, a taxpayer-supported entity shouldn't have a surplus.
Right.
Their expenses should equal their revenue.
Mhm.
Now, Doctor, these aren't even close.
No.
They're not even close.
When you have 11 million out of a budget, let's say of 80.
And let's use round numbers. Let's say it's 100, which it's not.
Yeah.
No, that's missing it by 11%.
That's right.
And almost 13% in 2012. In 2014, 10%.
Mhm.
And Mr. Johnson said they've got over 7 million this year.
Well, you have informed me of some accounting principles for taxpayer entity institutions, and I think one of them said, should you have a surplus with a taxpayer-supported institution? And the answer was no.
It
That
shows
shows poor,
bad budgeting.
bad budgeting.
We need to hire somebody in the finance department that understands budgeting. You can't get within 10 or 12% and think it's okay.
Mhm.
And then we've got a board over there that many of those people have been there for years.
Mhm.
And they've accumulated in the last 11 years $73 million of budget surplus. which apparently they've approved because every year they vote on it.
Right. But the taxpayers don't get to vote on it.
All we do is elect those officials.
Well,
And when I elect an official, I expect him to have a fiduciary responsibility with my funds.
right.
Um,
Well, you'd certainly expect that out of a bank vice president who,
with an MBA
with
and
an MBA and said he's.
In
been
accounting?
Yeah.
I would. And in fact, he mentioned the other day that he's got some audit experience, so apparently he and I have similar backgrounds.
Yeah,
Um,
but not similar views.
I don't know. I don't know how he wouldn't know this. First of all, it's in his financial reports that his name's on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, let me ask you to explain this. Now, from an accounting point of view, with the master's of science in accountancy, and the experience you've got, is it true that you should be able to read a financial statement and be able to understand that if you've got these surpluses, that's not supposed to be there?
Well, it's not a good thing. A surplus in a taxpayer-supported entity is not a good thing. A good thing is to equal zero.
Right.
Okay, now, they do at Delmar, the board requires that they have this contingency of 1.5%. So you're always gonna have approximately $1 million
Right.
of surplus.
Mhm.
So at Delmar, you should be $1 million over every year.
Right. So
So in this 11-year period, you'd be $11 million over. But we're not. We're $73 million over.
right.
Now,
So that's $1 million a year, and you that accumulates.
it
up.
does.
Okay.
It
All right.
does.
Well, let me ask you a critical question in my mind. Upon your examination of the records here, can you tell me where that $73 million is at this stage of the game?
I can go back and do the research and figure it out. At this point, I can't tell you, but I can go back and do the research.
Where should it be?
Well, it's got to be in funds that can't be used for operations, or in expenditures that were not operating related, such as a music building.
Well, that's operation, isn't it?
No, that's a capital expenditure. And 95 acres of non-farmland.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see if there are any state laws, federal laws, Corpus Christi laws, which state that you have to present a purchase like that to the taxpayers and at least inform them.
You know,
And then let them vote on it.
even if there's not a law, you would think the fiduciary responsibility would say, hey, let's make an announcement, let's get some public input.
Mhm.
I don't remember that ever being done.
Well, I don't know that they know how to spell fiduciary,
And,
nor understand it.
and let me also say that in the financial statements, the award-winning comprehensive annual financial statements, there's a section in there called Management Discussion and Analysis. It's generally referred to as MD&A. And in that, the management, the administrators, explain what's going on with all the financials. And I read in there about, I believe it was a $6 million surplus, and they were explaining in the MD&A section that was the result of cost controls. Well, that was for 1 year. And if cost controls resulted in the budget surplus that year, it should be in 10 of the last 11
Sure.
years. And my question is, what costs are being controlled? Because right here, all I see are increases in cost, with the possible exception of instruction,
Mhm.
which you might find is odd since it's an institution that provides instruction. Why the instruction would be the cost that's not increasing?
That's a big question in my mind.
It's baffling, but let's analyze the new budget for next year
Okay.
compared to the actual expenditures for 2010, which was the peak year in enrollment.
Okay.
Keep in mind, enrollment's declined in excess of 18% since 2010.
Yeah.
So, there, in 2010, they spent for operations Doctor, when we look at the actual expenditures for 2010 and compare them to the budget for next year, with a reduction in excess of 18% enrollment, we see that the expenditures, when you remove the depreciation and the scholarships, which aren't included in the budget, so we're comparing an apple to an apple. In 2010, the expenditures were just slightly over $79 million. Now for next year, the budget anticipates comparable expenses of $85 million. A $6 million increase in expenditures from the peak year of 2010. So we're going to educate 82% of the students that we had in 2010 for $6 million more dollars. Now, I don't know if that catches you as odd.
It does.
I can usually look at financials and projections and reconcile them to economic events and say, well, gosh, that makes sense. I can't do that with these. That doesn't make any sense to me. And
If it didn't make any sense to you, it really wouldn't make any sense to me as a non-accountant.
well, you're a scientist. You probably only look at facts, though.
Well, I'm trying, because there don't seem to be many facts involved.
Well,
The fact is, where's the money? I mean, that's the only fact I'm after.
well, I had been watching the board meetings online, and when the questions raised about related to administrative bloat, there seems to be some feelings get hurt. But let me just say that if in 2010 we could educate 18% more students for $6 million less, and our salaries for our professors haven't went up very much, if any, and I can't exactly tell because they've not lined up the budget to the actual, so there's some commingling there.
Well, another factor that I see thrown in there is in 2010, we had a lot more, I believe, full-time, on-campus students than we do now. Because what we're doing is we're paying adjuncts, essentially, to go teach these dual credit courses, okay? And there is no revenue coming in from those necessarily. I don't know that CCISD.
It's minor.
It's nothing
It's
like
not
full
comparable. No, not comparable at all.
So with that in mind, and we're increasing those and decreasing the number of full-time students that are paying full tuition, then what's going on?
And that's an awfully good question. But our mix of full-time students and the dual credits and the part-times has changed. And we're below 3,000 full-time students at Del Mar. And we'll see what the numbers come in for the fall. But it's been declining. We hear words thrown out like contact hours. Okay, that's an excuse.
All right.
What we're looking for is enrollment. And we take that out of their award-winning comprehensive annual financial reports. And they put the numbers in there. Those are the numbers we rely on.
Right.
And we rely on them because an outside accounting firm comes in and does work on those numbers. So we have some comfort that those numbers are reasonably close.
Well, but here's another thing that we've uncovered here this year. We've had no internal auditor for ages. I don't know how long.
You've had a sign, I see the sign.
Well, I know the signs there. There are a lot of signs around there that, and one of which is misspelled, but that's all right. You know, that looks good at a institution of higher education. But then all of a sudden in this budget, we went from 43,000 some odd dollars for the audit fees, and now we're looking at $310,000 for 2016.
And that's a horrendous jump. And it was glossed over by your CFO over there. He said that includes an outsourcing of internal audit functions.
That's what the president sent the email to everybody.
Okay, now, so they're outsourcing the internal audit function, which used to have a salary. In 2008, the salary that was budgeted for internal audit, I believe, was around $70,000.
Mhm.
Now, you're not going to get a very strong internal auditor for that. So if they were anticipating hiring an internal auditor for $70,000, they probably failed miserably because nobody with a CPA certificate is going to work for that.
Right. Well, even, let's see, let's take the 310 and make it 300, and the 43,000 and make it 40. Then the difference there, as far as I can see, is about $260,000.
Sounding pretty close to me.
Okay, now how many internal auditors and what quality internal auditor could we hire for 100, let's see, what do we got? 240, say $120,000,
Well,
just a person.
actually, here's what they should do. Here's what they should do. They're apparently spending $250,000 for the internal, and now we don't know this for sure, because the audit fee may have increased. We don't know.
Yeah.
However, I have requested the engagement letters, so
Right.
eventually we will know.
Mhm.
And what Mr. McCampbell said was, we had, well, he didn't say it, maybe it was Dr. Sloan, said they only had one bid on the audit. Well, if you have one bid on the audit, you got no competition.
That's right.
So price may have gone up. We
Mhm.
don't know.
Right.
But let's say we're dealing with $250,000 for the internal audit function. Now, you could have hired a CPA that was also a certified fraud examiner
Mhm.
for probably 180, 200,000.
Yeah.
And that's what you need.
Yep.
Now, maybe he needs an assistant, and the assistant should be a CPA as well. Let's say he's a relatively new CPA, and you're only going to have to pay him 100,000.
Mhm.
So it's going to cost you more than the outsourcing initially is going to cost you.
Right.
But if the outsourced internal audit function runs into some problems, man, your bill's going to go up.
Yeah.
And if you hire a CPA that's also a certified fraud examiner, that's got some experience, he's going to know exactly what to do.
Mhm.
And if he's got a young CPA working for him that's making $100,000, he'll be able to direct him so that you'll know those financials are correct. Remember when in 2010, which was a big year for them, not only did they have their peak year in enrollment, they did an accounting conversion.
Mhm.
And if you recall, it didn't go all that well.
No.
The memo that we received that was written from the college controller to Ms. McDonald said, basically, I'm summarizing it,
Mhm.
paraphrasing it, gosh, the general ledger didn't equal the subledger.
Oh my, well, just blow it off. We'll open this file drawer, and if we can't find any files,
Can't find any information,
yeah,
just
we'll
write it off.
Yeah. What the heck? We don't know.
So an internal auditor, a qualified internal auditor over there would not have allowed that to happen.
Right.
And an internal auditor that's qualified is going to report directly to the Board of Regents, not to the
Okay.
CFO, because he's going to be looking at the work of the CFO.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. This is the scientific background speaking. All right, so what we have, just to keep the books over there, currently as a CFO with never having an accounting degree or a course.
Can't see that he's had a
Okay.
course one.
Now, that's $140,000 salary the last I looked.
It is.
Okay. Then we've got a comptroller. Okay. Now, if we have to hire an internal auditor and an assistant to that person, do we really need the CFO?
We do. We need a qualified CFO.
Qualified.
The internal audit function is a check and balance.
Okay.
It's a clear internal control system. And when you're dealing with a $90 million budget, you've got to have checks and balances.
Oh, yeah.
And we've not had one.
Obviously, we haven't.
And here is part of the result of not having checks and balances. Oops, we missed our budget by $12.8 million.
Right.
Well, guys, if we'd had the checks and balances in place, that wouldn't have happened. Now,
So would the taxpayers have saved?
they would have saved the $12.8 million and had to spend the $350,000 for the internal audit function.
Okay.
Or let's call it $300,000, $200 for a good guy and his assistant for
Yeah.
$100.
Okay.
So if we had spent, or if the college had spent the $300,000, we could have saved a majority of the $73 million. Now, that's our money. It's your money.
I know it is. That's what burns me up.
So would you rather employ qualified people at a reasonable salary? We have to pay these people. They've got certificates, they've got experience, they can get jobs elsewhere.
Right.
Which is why you can't hire an internal auditor for $70,000.
Right.
And apparently the last one they hired didn't work out all that well.
No.
And I've tried to find out why, unsuccessfully, but I can speculate, but I won't do it in front of the camera.
Okay. All right.
But that didn't work out all that well.
Well, we're based on facts here, not speculation.
We are, and most of our facts come right out of
They're all- yeah,
their award-winning
that's right.
comprehensive annual financial.
Award-winning. I love that.
That's how it's referred to. It's award-winning comprehensive annual financial report.
Well, I guess you can, what was that old Iowa adage, you can't make a purse out of a sow's ear or something like that.
That's right. And a silk purse out of the south here.
Oh, is that a silk purse out of a sow's ear?
Yeah, well, I guess there's no silk here.
No?
So we've got a lack of internal controls. And
Right. Well,
we have hammered on that and hammered on it. And now, I don't know if we helped or not, but now they've hired an internal auditor.
well, I think that's more than coincidence.
And I hope we've had a positive impact. And I hope that, see, Mr. Gordy presented this $73 million surplus at the last board meeting, and he's saying, why have you not been able to give the professors a raise? And then we had two of the board members that I recall spoke up, Mr. Watts and Mr. Boggs, and they said, why have we not been able to give the professors a raise? And they went into closed session, and then the professors got what the Caller Times said was a 7% raise.
Right.
So I suspect that there's a direct correlation between Mr. Gordy's presentation and the 7% raise.
Right. Well, I do know that with a lot of the discoveries that have been done with BS investigations, that the faculty council at Delmar College was, I guess, emboldened enough to request the raises. And I guess with the publicity that's been coming out of this, and I don't like that publicity, folks. I've stirred it and created the publicity, but it's very painful for me to find out in the long run that that's what you have to do to get things done. And I don't think that's should be the function of the citizens to have administrators over there do the right thing for a change.
You would think that the board's elected to do that.
Well, they don't care. Uh, Let me interject the fact that with the request by me as Taxpayers Association President and Jack Gordy as the Vice President to please, put the public comments in a place where people can go and comment, and then to have a Board of Regents member, okay, say, well, no, let's have them do it at the end, because if they're really interested in talking, they'll stick around that long, but if they're not really interested, then we don't want to hear them in their voicing their opinions and upsetting our smooth business in the meeting. Now, what kind of philosophy is that?
I hope that regent does not get reelected.
Well, I hope that regent doesn't run again. So, and I don't think it's just him that feels that way. He's the only one that's been vocal about it.
Now, it looks,
Who are you to ask us?
we're the ones that put you in office.
Yeah, right. Well, they don't.
It appears that the actuals for this year are projected to end up at $73.6 million. It's an August 31st year end, so they're still projected numbers.
Yeah, you got 13 days.
And the proposed budget for next year is $85 million,
Up from 79,
up from 73.
73. Oh my gosh, $12 million.
$12 million increase. Now, these are their numbers.
Good night, Gussie.
So, it's going to cost $12 million more next year to educate
Fewer people.
18% fewer people than we had in 2010. And in 2010, it cost $6 million less. So I just keep trying to reconcile these numbers.
I think,
Unsuccessfully.
right. Well, another factor that I'll throw in there, I know they loved it over there at Delmar College, but I think the Wall Street Journal at one time had indicated and coined the phrase administrative bloat. And when that came up from a regent in a recent board meeting, then apparently the chairman the chair of the Board of Regents, I don't know if they go by president or chair, Mr. McCampbell and the president came unglued.
They did. I watched that I was watching on the internet.
Yeah, they were very perturbed about that statement. But now we have assistant deans. Did you know that?
Well, I keep seeing the pyramid getting longer and longer, with more and more layers in there, and yet they did get upset about that. And just to reconcile it back to the expenditures, I'm looking at the professors' salaries and professor-related expenses, instruction-related expenses are going down. Yet the budget's going up. So if it's not administrative bloat, and I heard the president he alluded to the fact that it was student services. Well,
let me just interject this. Did you know that students cannot get anybody to answer the phone over there?
I heard some horror stories about trying to register.
They're true.
It was horrible. The poor young lady stayed up to midnight for the opening and of registration, and the opening didn't work.
Right.
And so they deferred it for one day,
Right.
and she was up till midnight the next day to get her registration done, and it didn't work again. Now, is there a correlation, and that's a new system, I think that might have been what they converted to in 2010.
Yeah.
By the way, your MIS director over there gets paid, in 2008, it was more than twice what some professors were getting paid.
Oh, yeah. Way more than twice.
So,
More than twice of what tenured, long-term, experienced instructors make.
That's a true statement. In 2008, based on information obtained from their audited financial statements. But I wonder if there's a correlation between the declining enrollment and the inability of a student to get registered for class.
Well, I talk to students all the time, Ed, and they tell me I can go over there and stand in line for 2 hours, and one line get asked, what the hell do you want? Okay? And then, no, you're gonna have to go back to that line that you just spent two hours in when they told you, no, you can't do that. You gotta go to that line. I mean,
Doctor, I do want to relay one experience I had over there, and you were with me. Occasionally, we'll buy our documents for our PIAs, and we'll get an invoice for $7. We have to go up and pay it.
Yeah.
There's never a line there. We're always first in line.
right,
It takes 15, 25 minutes to process our $7 invoice,
that's right.
and we're the only ones in line.
Well, you should see it this week. I mean, you can wait in line to pay tuition over there for at least 2 hours. And the registrar's line is even longer than that. And the financial aid line is even longer than that. So what you do is you take your pillow and your lunchbox after you've had your breakfast, and you go over there and stand and wait forever. And then you find out you're in the wrong line. Maybe I ought to go over there and film that. I think I will.
Now, I went to school in the 70s.
Yeah.
And we had punch cards.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't know what that is.
Oh, I used to punch it. I did the same thing with my registration. And you just picked it up and you went over to the thing, they ran it through the then computer with the punch card, do not fold, staple,
Card
or
reader.
mutilate, yeah. And,
Not
Family,
magnetic
you were in
reader, card
class.
reader.
yeah,
I was at the University of Houston, and they set it up around the basketball, the perimeter of the basketball,
mhm,
up at the very top of it, so you had
right.
a real big
That's what
circle.
we did in the
And-
auditorium, yeah. I mean, in the sports arena.
And you went to the class that had the table,
Mhm.
and you got your card, and if they had 30 seats, they had 30 cards.
Right,
So you pick it out, and you get your package together, you go at the end, they tell you you owe sometimes up to $150.
yeah,
So you write your check out, and you go.
yeah,
If there was a line, it was 5 people deep.
yeah.
Now, this was the 70s in a
Mhm.
campus that had 40,000 students,
Right,
and it went pretty smoothly.
yeah,
Now we've got a very expensive computer system,
yeah.
very
And
expensive.
a student can stand there for 30, 40, 50 minutes to be advised while people are going in trying to find the class. Oh, well, this one's closed. Well, let's try this one. Well, this one's closed. Well, let's try that one. No, well, you have to call the professor. Maybe he'll override you into the class. And like you say, all they need to do is to have the card sitting there or some documentation, swipe card or whatever, and say, okay, all you have to do is here's a class of 30. Sorry, there's no more room in it.
Doctor, it's just like a perpetual inventory system. If you've got 30 items in there,
Yeah.
and you delete one every time some
Yeah.
student gets in,
Right.
all of a sudden you got 0, it pops right up.
Well, it's like a blue light special, and what was that, KR
Kmart.
times, Well, here, I'd like to buy one, well, we only had 3 in stock, but here's a rain check. Yeah,
That's a very expensive computer system over there.
it is, and it won't do the job, and then it craters.
I've heard the horror stories about it cratering. And the fees associated with that computer system are just horrendous.
Oh, yeah. That's a very expensive endeavor.
So I'm concerned about this budget. I'm concerned about these surpluses. I'm concerned about the expenditures and the internal controls or lack of them. We have a very difficult time getting answers to any of our questions. So we have referenced their audited financial statements. I'm awaiting engagement letters from both the CPA firm and the consulting firm, which is a CPA firm as well. It's going to perform the internal audit function. And by the way, I looked them up. They look like a very strong firm.
Okay.
And they've got some qualified people. But we'll see what the reporting structure is, because that internal auditor should report directly to the board.
Mhm.
If he's reporting to the corporate controller or the CFO, I find that to be a big issue.
A conflict of interest.
A big issue, because you and I know from the work we've done that some things over there don't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, really? You notice that?
And I asked for detailed transactions for 7 general ledger accounts, and I get an estimate of $26.7 million.
In 100 and something years.
120 man years.
Yeah. And 105 million documents later.
Yeah, and you know, it's like nobody thought to, is this reasonable?
Oh, it was just a mathematical mistake.
Well, we heard that several times on air, actually.
And then at another venue that's only asked for too much.
But the too much was less than 200 pages.
Yeah. And what was the final cost of it?
We got that for zero. And I do commend Mr. Rivera for negotiating that one.
Yeah. I think he saw the peril in that, let's say.
Well, it didn't reflect well on Delmar,
Yeah.
nor should it have. That was an intentional withholding of information that we were due.
Right.
And what resulted from that? Why in the world would they want to withhold that information from us? Well, part of the reason was the memo that Mr. Johnson had to write, or felt he had to write, to Ms. McDonald to explain why no detailed subsidiary ledger transactions existed, because, gosh, the general ledger didn't balance to the sub-ledger.
Almost to the point of that write-off.
Actually, it was that number, 185,000.
Yeah.
What a strange coincidence.
Yeah. Well, dreams delivered, as they say. What was that old song, To Dream the Impossible Dream?
That's a good song. Now, I cannot click on a local web page right now without getting Delmar pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Something about answering my dream, and yet, and you see I think it's about $1.2 million in advertising budgeted, yet the enrollment's declining, and has been for 5 years.
Yeah.
What's the correlation there?
Well, maybe there are too many people that know about Delmar College and have trouble trying to register.
Yeah. And it wouldn't take much if I were a student and I allocated 4 years of my life to get a bachelor's degree, and the first 2 I wanted to save money. But the first 2 I go out to Delmar, and because of the computer problems, registration problems, that 2-year experience turns into 3 or 3.5 years, then it's really a costly decision.
Right.
So at that point, you have to say, am I saving enough going to Delmar to compensate me for the extra 2 years it's going to take me to get a bachelor's?
Without income for that many years.
Minimum wage jobs.
I'm just thankful that I was, I guess, naive enough just to put my head down and go straight through.
Well,
It cost me. I worked all the time, and I got out owing nothing.
I had 2 part-time jobs through college, and it was perfect. I lived on $100 a week. I'll cut this part too.
You all right?
I will be.
You've got enough for 2 shows anyway, I think.
I'm okay with running it over and putting it on YouTube.
Here you go.
And this is valuable stuff.
I took a wild guess with that South Texas News and Reviews, because I figured I had maybe filmed about 7.5 minutes of broken concrete and chug holes, and I also had a palm tree frond right in the sidewalk. Yeah, so I took the camera and I said, I'm holding it at eyeball level, and I went through that thing. You'll enjoy that.
Oh my.
Yeah. Then I showed them when I was picking up insulation, blowing out of all those dumpsters over there, that all that crap from Benner's building came, all the air
Your
conditioning.
lungs may be contaminated. You get that
Oh,
close
I'm
to
sure
it.
it is. Well, it was blowing way in front of our building, because I said, look at the trash out here. We can only have groundskeepers anymore.
That's right. They fired them all.
I had a big paper bag and all kinds of trash out there. The little styrofoam peanuts and insulation. So I shot all of that, you know, I said, well, I'm gonna pick this up and throw it out. I didn't film myself showing it out, throwing it out.
That's what, that stuff will blow down lower staples there and
Mm-hmm.
be there forever for the bums to sleep on.
Oh, yeah.
Make for good
Well,
bedding.
maybe they could, maybe they could take those big vents out, you know, the ducks out.
It could be good winter.
Yeah, you can, when you lay on them, you know, you get body form.
And then crawl inside and go away.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, let's do one more thing that I forgot, then we'll wind
Okay,
it up.
all right.
Doctor, we're back from our break. I guess you realize there's 50 community college districts in Texas. Okay, now, based on the research that I did when I was running for the last election, Del Mar College District has always been among the top taxing districts in the state. Okay, now, and historically, we've had one of the highest debts per student of any of the 50 in the state.
Right.
Now, things have changed. Some of the other colleges are taxing more, but we're still in the top 10%. Now, another thing that changed was that the voters approved the $157 million bond indenture.
Right.
So once you add that $157 million to what is approximately $100 million outstanding and divide it by the number of students that, both full and part-time, at Del Mar, we have now accomplished being the highest debt per student in Texas among those 50 community colleges. And not only are we the highest, we are dramatically higher than all the others. So we've got one of the highest taxing rates. We're borrowing more per student. And strangely, among those 50 community colleges in Texas, we are one of the few that has had a decline in enrollment.
Yeah.
So, again, I try to reconcile these to economic events, and that doesn't make any sense to me. One of the highest, among the highest taxing, the highest debt per student, declining enrollment.
That's hard to correlate.
It doesn't make any sense. Now, a lot of our problem goes back to CCISD, which they had a turnover at the superintendent level. So the current superintendent can't be straddling too much of this. But,
Well, he was assistant,
was he?
I think so.
Well,
Okay.
CCISD is in the bottom 25% of the ISDs in Texas,
Yeah.
all the ISDs. So we've got CCISD performing poorly, very poorly. If you're in the bottom 25% of your class, you're not a stellar student. So they're performing very poorly, high dropout rates, poor literacy rates for many of the graduates. So Del Mar they have to take up where CCISD failed.
Right.
So the remedial classes are going to be very costly. The GED classes, very costly. So we're in a town that needs a great community college
Yeah.
to compensate for the inadequate ISD. Based on the declining enrollment, the high tax rate, and the highest debt per student, I don't think we've got the community college that we need. And
Well, we've got the community college, but I don't think that we have the power with the board and the administration to pull it back where it was when I got here 26 years ago.
well, and I think the fact that the performance bonus is given on an annual basis while the enrollment's declining. And that means the president's meeting the criteria of the board.
Mhm.
So they're satisfied, apparently, with where the direction is heading.
Right.
And the direction it's heading is to reinforce the fact that Corpus Christi is the second most illiterate city in America.
Right. And there's a reason for that.
Our unemployment, it's going to be horrible.
Well, and look what we paid for, there are two terms for it. It's remedial courses at Del Mar College, or you can put it in as a developmental. But either way you look at it, it's because the people coming out of the CCISD are very insufficient with the knowledge to be able to handle a college course.
And that's why the CCISD is in the bottom 25% of the ISDs in Texas.
They did, I saw in the paper, I think it was today, it may have been yesterday, but it was on one of the sections that CCISD has just raised the base salary for incoming teachers to $47,000 a year. Did you know that the incoming instructors at Del Mar College are not up to that?
I did know that. Is that sad or what?
Well, they're about 44 or 5.
And they, almost all of them have to have a master's degree.
Yeah.
And CCISD does not.
That's right.
My daughter started in Katy at more than 47,000.
Yeah.
With a bachelor's.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when your professors were getting paid much less.
Oh, yeah.
That was 3 years
Well,
ago.
even incoming PhDs are not. I mean, you know, when you come in as a tenure track professor with a PhD, CCISD looks better.
How sad.
Yeah.
How sad. And here we are with $73 million
Mm-hmm.
of surplus funds over the last 11 years, and the professors haven't gotten a raise in years
Mm-hmm.
until this year.
Well, there used to be a very small yearly, what was it? Yearly 1 through 18 years. I think there was it wasn't a performance bonus, but anyway, it was about $675 a year, and they even cut that out for a couple of years.
And now, I'm wondering what their explanation for cutting that out was.
We didn't have any money.
Well, yes, you did.
Thank you, Ed.
According to your award-winning comprehensive annual financial statements,
That's right. Well,
you have lots of money,
yeah, but
and you still got it because you kept it. You didn't spend it.
well, I'd like to see where it is. Let's ferret that information out.
Well, every time you walk by the music building or drive by your 95 acres over here,
Okay.
you're seeing part of it.
Yeah.
Unvoted on.
I had somebody ask me the other day, they said, you know, when you go over to film that ugly show over there with Mr. Bennett, I say, well, I go down Rod Field and then make that incredibly close turn that's all screwed up. You know, you got such bumps.
You're going to need new struts.
Yeah, okay, if you're doing the speed limit, otherwise you got a dump truck on your butt that's gonna run over you and tailgate you and run into the back of you. But when you come around there, then they were now concerned about cleaning that place up, now that it's dried out a little bit. To see what happens.
I hope lightning doesn't strike over there. That'll clean it up.
Yeah, well, that's what they need, is a good controlled fire over there and get it over with.
I don't want an uncontrolled one. It's way too close to my house.
You know, and then they say it's not in the floodplain, but I've seen cows belly deep out there with Marie Colson on that property.
Got that ditch running right behind it.
Yeah. It's what, 20 feet deep?
You know,
And about 40 feet, 50 feet wide.
they can fill up pretty quick in a hurricane.
It fills up, folks, when we get a good rain through here, and it flows over into that property.
Well, Doctor, we're going to have to leave this confused, I'm afraid, because I cannot, no matter how hard I try, reconcile these numbers. I've heard for years that there was no money for raises,
Mhm.
and I opened up the award-winning comprehensive annual financial report,
Right.
and it says we had all kinds of money for raises, we just didn't want to give you a raise.
Yeah. Well, how much do we spend a year on the comprehensive award?
Enough to get it. And I've written many financial statements, I've never gotten an award for them.
All right.
Never. I guess the only award I got was I didn't get sued,
Yeah.
because mine were fairly stated.
Right. You didn't get a $15,000 bonus,
Not for that.
performance bonus?
Any bonus I got, I had to earn, and it was based on criteria. So, I am confused. I can't understand how it costs $6 million more to educate 18% fewer students. That doesn't make any sense to me. Last year's actual expenditures are $12 million less than next year's projected expenditures. Are we having another decline in students? If we extrapolate the last 5 years out, we are.
We'll probably get a decrease.
So the fact that I don't understand it just means that I don't understand it.
Yep.
I'm looking at their numbers. I do say they've done well in hiring at least an outside firm to come in and do the internal audit work. Why they couldn't figure out how to spend a little extra money, more than the $70,000 that was budgeted in 2008, rather than pay an outside firm $250,000 or so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that would have happened, but a lot of their financial decisions over there baffle me.
Mhm. Well, another thing that baffles me is how we could go from 58% of the budget years ago for instructional purposes, and now we're down to about 36%.
And I'm trying to investigate that. That's why I've asked for earlier award-winning reports. I've not heard any response. I asked 2 people for them. I've gotten no indication that they even got my email.
Well, 104 days seems to be the
That's
norm,
pretty
right?
standard.
Although the Attorney General says 10 days, working days.
By the way, speaking of that, I had a little trouble getting information from the Coastal Bend Council of Governments.
Oh, yeah.
And I sent them 2 PIAs, and they ignored both of them. So the second one, I attached a letter that I sent to the Attorney General. And it took him a while, or them a while, and they sent the Council of Governments a letter and carbon me on it that said, give him the information. Well, it appears at this point that the Council of Governments, the Coastal Bend Council of Governments, has elected to ignore the Attorney General.
Well, they'll sue them.
That's what the letter says.
Yeah.
It says, we don't want to, but we can sue you. So I have sent emails to the Attorney General saying, I think they're
What I
ignoring.
meant was the Council of Governments will go hire,
Oh, like what they did so that,
To
to
me.
prevent you from getting information.
Yeah.
Well, that made perfect sense in your case because,
what are they hiding?
well, they didn't want you to have it for your hearing,
That's right.
whatever it was. And in fact, they didn't want you to have it to the extent that they were willing to spend thousands of dollars to prevent you from having it for your hearing.
I asked them such mind-twisting questions like, would you please provide me with the official definition of insubordinate,
So that would be in the board policy somewhere.
or the official board policy definition of being intimidating?
And they sued the Attorney General so that they could,
yeah.
and they used the firm out of Austin that has a base rate of some $400. They do get a discount. I think it's a volume discount.
Right. Our buddies up there.
They,
Graves, Daughtry.
well, they know your name. I've seen it on their invoices.
Yeah. Well, now they don't put it on the invoice. Nobody knows. It's just
summarized.
a 5-hour, $1,000 conversation with the president on personnel matters.
Kind of
That's real-
generic.
Yeah, that's kind of descriptive, isn't it? Okay. Well, you know, they can do what they want to do.
Well,
They've got more money than I've got,
that's our money, they got it.
but I've got more time than they've got.
Well, they may get some time.
Yeah, I hope so.
We're gonna keep investigating. The numbers do not make sense to me. And the explanations in past years as to why the professors were not given salary increases, you know, it's either true or it's false.
You know, life boils down to that, isn't it?
And the truth is, there was plenty of money.
But remember what Clinton said, it all depends on what is.
Apparently it does at Del Mar as well. Doctor, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed, I appreciate it.
We will continue.